familiar with this page, please be sure to check it out. This is where we list all our upcoming events. We hold these events every week at this time about a variety of topics related to being a HubSpot admin. So right now you are here. We're going to talk about objects and associations with Maggie Brenner. Super excited to talk about that. Seems like you are too. Got a lot of people registered. So ready for that. Next week, we're going to talk about the Gmail and Yahoo updates and how HubSpot email is responding to that to make sure your emails still get delivered. If you're interested in email deliverability, which seems like a good thing for an admin to be interested in, definitely worth checking out. The week after that, we're going to explore an integration, HubSpot's Webflow integration. If you are curious about Webflow or you use it or you have clients who do, if you're a partner, definitely worth checking out. I'm very excited about our March 19th event. We're going to talk about Clearbit. HubSpot recently acquired Clearbit. We have Matt, who was the CEO of Clearbit and is now the general manager of Clearbit by HubSpot, coming to talk about what that acquisition means for HubSpot and what, just to answer all your questions about that. So be sure to register. I expect big things to happen inside of HubSpot now that we've acquired Clearbit, and it'll be a good thing for you as admins to stay on top of for sure. But perhaps the biggest event here is we are branching out internationally. We're going to start having monthly events at an APAC-friendly time. So if you have friends in Australia or Singapore or anywhere that touches the Pacific Ocean, let them know. We've got Christine Romero, great longtime HubSpot mad scientist type, and Connor Bell from HubSpot's own sales team in Sydney office. They're going to be hosting these events once a month. The first one is about connected email. So the stuff that powers like Gmail and Outlook and stuff. Definitely help us spread the word about this. This is a lousy time to meet. If you're anywhere on the other side of the world, we're fixing that. And we want to make it accessible to admins all over the place. So help us spread the word about that. After that, end of March, we're talking about forms. Highly recommend this session. The forms tool has gotten a lot of feedback in admin HUGevents over the years. And excited to have the forms team coming and talking about some things on their roadmap. They've got big things planned in 2024. You will not want to miss those updates. Early April, we're going to talk about solving common issues in HubSpot. We have a member of HubSpot support team coming and talking about how you can troubleshoot when things go wrong with an import or a workflow, and also explaining some of the stuff that HubSpot support team can do with their bespoke behind the scenes tools that only they have access to. Early April, also, we are going to have a HubSpot 101 for Salesforce users. So if you have people moving from Salesforce to HubSpot, coming from that background, if you come from that background and you find the vocabulary differences confusing or understanding just what HubSpot does compared to Salesforce, definitely recommend that. Most of the events we have here are a little more advanced. Excited to try something a little more beginner oriented. April 16th, we're going to have a session on risk management. The same team that's been building the security center inside of HubSpot and thinking a lot about security are expanding their scope to think more about business risk generally. They would love your input on what it would mean for HubSpot to help you manage business risk. They have some ideas they want to share. They want to hear your ideas. It's going to be a very collaborative session. And then at end of April, we're having a sort of show and tell about Python scripts that do cool things in HubSpot. So come check that out. I think it'll be really fun. So that's what's coming up. As always, all of our events are recorded and put on this YouTube channel. Highly recommend giving it a subscribe, especially now that we're going to have APAC-friendly events that I'm going to sleep through. It would be good to keep an eye on the videos here and make sure we're not missing anything wherever it may be happening in the world. We have, wow, this is really slow. We have space on community.hubspot.com. Good thing to check out. We also have a group on LinkedIn. Ta-da! And that's a fun thing to join also. But as far as social collaboration goes, I'm really worried about my computer right now. The Slack group, Sprocketeer, which now has more than 1,000 members, is your best place to connect with other HubSpot power users. It's not HubSpot affiliated officially in any way, but got a lot of power users and admin types in there. If you want to connect with others, brainstorm solutions to problems, mentor people, get mentored, it's a great place to do that. Super Admin Bootcamp is closed, but keep an eye on this. We'll talk about it more as it opens up again. Bevy is the platform we're using here. We are, again, expecting a very large group today. We already have 324 people in the room. So if things start freezing, if your computer starts crawling as slowly as mine, maybe close some tabs, but also give the page a refresh, leave the webinar, and come back in. Usually those basic things will fix the problem. If you have any suggestions for us on topics you would like to see from this Hug, we do keep this weekly cadence up. We would love your input on speakers or topics that will best help you excel as an admin. And then I think we are already recording. The last thing I want to mention is next week, there is an event called Winterbound happening in Salt Lake City. HubSpot partner is hosting it. Deanna and I are both going to be there. So if you are anywhere in Salt Lake area or in the Intermountain West and don't mind driving, because that's the only way to get around the Intermountain West, I would love to see some of you in person. Happy to meet up, even if you're not coming to the event. We could figure out some kind of casual get together. So if you are in or around Salt Lake City, reach out to me or Deanna so we can orchestrate getting together. Be fun. With that is plenty enough housekeeping items for me. Really excited to turn it over to Maggie, who's going to talk about objects and associations. Maggie, take it away.
Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie. I am a member of HubSpot's product team. I spent a lot of time thinking about how folks like you all set data models up in HubSpot. We're going to focus a lot on objects and associations today. I'm going to start with a brief overview of terminology and concepts. I would assume a lot of you are already experts in that space. And then we're going to do some live configuring of a portal together, where I'm going to highlight a bunch of new functionality that we released last year. I'm split screen, so if you ask a question, I will do my best to get to it in the end. And in the last 15 or so minutes, I'm really excited to give you all some previews of what we have on the docket for this year. There's a lot of cool stuff in the works. The goal for today is that after this session, you will be able to articulate the relationship between objects and associations, leverage the power of associations and their labels, and identify opportunities to increase data quality. I would say that last one has been such a big theme for us in the last couple of years. Really excited that we're continuing to focus on it and ensure that you all can make sure your teams are set up for success and kind of like entering information as accurately and efficiently as possible. All right, let's talk about objects. So an object represents the different types of relationships and processes your business has. There's a lot of ways to slice and dice objects. I think about them in these kind of buckets, which is pretty much everyone uses contacts in companies. Everyone has access to deals and tickets. People use them in a bunch of different ways. It's always fun for me to talk to folks who are like, here's this novel way I'm using the ticket object. We have some where you have to have purchased Sales Hub or Marketing Hub, things like subscriptions and calling and payments. And then, of course, we have custom objects, which are unique to your portal. And we're going to walk through building a custom object together today. Associations are funky. I'm just going to call it out. They describe the relationship between two object types. They help you understand how different parts of your business are connected. I know that in lots of other systems, there isn't this discrete concept of the thing that connects the two other things. So really excited for feedback. We're actually going to spend the majority of our time today in kind of the associations realm. I was kind of part of the project where we made it so you could have multiple companies associated to a contact. And so it's pretty awesome to see how much we've accelerated kind of the functionality that exists within associations, and lots more cool stuff to come. Okay, you might have heard us use the phrase smart CRM. I think lots of people hear smart and they think AI, and there's definitely lots of people thinking about AI-powered stuff for the CRM. I think about it a little more simply, kind of in these three main buckets. We think about you all, so our admins. We want to make sure that if you're new to HubSpot, you have a short learning curve. You have curated recommendations and guidance. So, based on your business and your industry and your use case, we should be helping you along and providing you with relevant information. We want to make sure you can keep tabs on everything and diagnose and quickly fix issues. So everything that I'm going to cover in this slide are things that I would say are a focus for last year and will definitely be a focus for this year in terms of features that we're working on. We want your users or your reps to have intuitive defaults with flexible customization. I want to really call out that intuitive defaults part because we want to make sure that even if you do nothing, the kind of baseline experience is really good and solid. And we want strong and consistently enforced guardrails, which kind of references back to good data quality, less time spent doing manual stuff. And so when we think about our CRM overall, we want all the info users need easily accessible in one system. HubSpot has spent a ton of energy and resources making sure that you can pull everything in. We want to make sure that you and your team don't need to context switch all the time. We want to make sure that you are getting the guidance you need when you need it, and that as much as possible, we're automating the stuff that really should be automated. So just wanted to give that context. You'll probably continue to hear lots and lots of talk about Smart CRM in the months and years to come. So I wanted to kind of reference it quickly. All right, we are going to switch to into our new portal. So I'm going to set the scene. Actually, before I do that, I realize I should pause. Kyle, Deanna, any questions that I should respond to before I jump in?
No, I think we're all just riveted. Go.
Cool.
Go.
Okay. I want you all to imagine that we collectively own a tutoring business. It's called Tutoring Central, and we're going to build our data model together. So some things to know about Tutoring Central: there are courses. So you could think you have an SAT course or an ACT course, and there are instructors or teachers. So I started us out within settings, a part of HubSpot that you probably all know very well. And I'm specifically on contacts. So hopefully you are all aware that in the last year, we've introduced the ability to create same object associations. So deals to deals, contacts to contacts. There are a million cool use cases. If you have found a cool use case for same object associations, please throw it in the chat. I always want to learn. In this specific use case or scenario, we are going to set up two key relationships. So in education, we often talk about kind of the family dynamics. So we're going to create a student to guardian relationship, and we're also going to create a student to teacher one. So if you haven't been in association settings in a minute, you might not be familiar with these new buttons that we have. Hopefully you are. And we're going to start out by just creating those association labels. So you have the option to choose between a single label, meaning colleague would be the same in both directions, or a pair of label, like manager or employee. In this case, we're going to choose a pair of labels, and we're going to choose student and guardian. And I'm going to say that I think we're going to say, like, let's say a student can have a max of 5 guardians listed in our system. But we know that a guardian might work with have lots of students who are in the program. So we're going to leave that as many. Many is just kind of like unbounded. It's like up to our system limits. And so this is a pretty new concept. I'm pretty into being able to check my work. So I can see, okay, a contact who's a student can be associated to 5 other contacts with the label guardian, and a contact guardian can be associated to many other contacts with the label student. I think that looks good to go. I checked my visualizations and the sentences that make sense in my brain. I'm going to go ahead and create. So all of this is like pretty new concepts. Please fill out our CSAT though when it shows up for you. We want your feedback. So we now have these new labels that we've set up, and we've created restrictions as well. We're going to go ahead and create one more label. We're going to do a pair again. We're going to do student and teacher. And in this case, I'm going to create some specific rules. So I'm going to imagine that a student can only be in up to 5 classes at a time. So I'm going to say 5. And that a teacher can only instruct a maximum of 20 students. So again, this is where I'm like really trying to check my work, make sure things are set up correctly, and hit create. So I'm going to pause. I specifically in that instance was creating limits at the label level. You can also create limits at the object type level. It's a little bit funky when you're thinking about contacts, but these two things are kind of related. So if I wanted to restrict the number of other contacts that one contact can be associated to, you can do that as well. The system is not let you set it to lower than the labels because it'll create like kind of a funky experience. But if I wanted to say, okay, it could be 6. Oh, well, that's not going to work because I have this relationship that needs to exist. So I need to make it at least, 21, and then I should be good to go to save. I'm not going to set it right now, but just wanted to call out that exists. I think it makes a lot of sense in things like contact to company associations, where you might say a contact should only ever be associated to 3 companies. We've seen people using the limit at the object level a lot with custom objects as well, where you might be storing really specific information about a property or a space. Oh, I didn't realize I was saying funky so much. I'm going to really be thinking about it, Jeremy. Okay. So we built out our key relationships here. We're going to go ahead and make a custom object. So I went to settings, to objects, and then to custom objects. I'm going to skip the tour for now. And I'm going to go ahead and create my first custom object. In this case, we're going to make a course object. Over the course of last year, we added this new field to have a description. The goal there is to help your team understand what this is used for. So captures a specific course we offer at our company, or whatever description you think will make the most sense. I'm going to show you where this exists. So in terms of key properties, I'm going to say course name, which should be a single line text. And then we're going to also add course ID. I think this is pretty cool functionality. Not too long ago, you had to make your custom object through the API. So it's pretty nice that you can do it on the fly here. All right. Key thing to remember about custom objects that I think is often overlooked is that in order for that object to be associated to other objects, you actually have to go in and make that relationship. So we're going to do that here. We're going to associate courses to both contacts and to deals. And in a minute, we will check our work to make sure we set things up correctly. All right, we have one last thing that we're going to do before we kind of dive in. Actually, I'm going to pause any questions I should respond to in terms of association limits and labels.
I think we're okay.
Okay, cool. So the last thing that I'm going to talk about is something that is being rolled out this week. So if you don't see it in your portal, you should see it in the next couple of days, which is that we had a default experience that I would say was less than ideal. A lot of people really didn't like this new deal terminology that was showing up. They felt like it was pretty clunky. And because we're working with students, they are often the folks who should be really kind of represented in those deals. So I'm going to use some contact tokens here. And I'm going to go first name. So the student's first name, I'm going to insert that. And I'm going to go ahead and add their last name. And then I also have the ability to add text. So in this case, I'm going to say sign up because that's usually when we start thinking about working with our students. So if I hit update, I can see it kind of update live, which is pretty cool. First name, last name, sign up. I think a key thing to talk about with personalization tokens is that information kind of needs to be readily available. So I'm going to generally then go ahead and create deal records from my contact records, which means that I'll then easily be able to bring in the contact information. Pretty excited about this functionality. I know people have kind of been hating on the new deal language for quite a while. So excited that it's available. I'm also going to make one more change to this, which is that I'm going to add associations. So over the last year, I think we added this functionality so that when you're creating a new record type, you can also require that there are associations that are included. So I'm making a deal, and because we're thinking so much about courses, that's a key part of kind of that sign up flow. I'm going to include that in the end as well. All right. So we have gone ahead and done a bunch of work. I'm going to check to make sure everything is set up correctly. Whoops. By going to reports, reporting, data management, and I'm going to go ahead and click on my data model. All right. If you have not spent time in this space, this is the data model overview. It is how you see how all of your objects are connected. It also enables you to see a lot of information about associations. So I'm going to start by clicking on my contacts object. In doing so, you should see all of the ways that contacts are associated to other objects. You also should see this new information that might be not as familiar to you, which is you can see all of this stuff right here, which is all of your labels. And if you ever wanted to go deeper on it, you can actually click onto one of these labels or click onto one of the kind of like cardinality icons, and you'll be brought into another view. We introduced this because we know that associations can be hard to understand. And it's like, in particular, now that we have the ability to configure a limit or a restriction, we wanted to make sure that you all had a space where you could kind of look at this in a more granular level. You can always kind of like reverse this, which would, in this case, swap the labels. You can change out the objects. I haven't created one there, so I guess I'll go to deals. And overall kind of get familiar with your setup of HubSpot in general. It's also a nice way when you're creating a custom object to make sure you've set things up correctly. So you can see when I went in and I associated my course object to contacts and deals, that is being reflected. This description that's a little hard to see is what I entered when I created my custom object. And by default, custom objects have the concept of activities tied to them. So really excited. I like this space a lot to make sure that things are set up correctly. If you have any feedback on it, would love to know as well.
There's actually a good question in the chat. In terms of the process, do you recommend starting with labels, then creating associations, then custom objects in a linear fashion? Or does the order not matter?
Ooh, this is a good question. I mean, for custom objects themselves, you should definitely create the custom object and then the association and then the label. I think people think about custom objects differently. They're often kind of like, there wasn't another space to store this information, or it's a pretty discrete data concept. So I think in general, I think labels are really powerful. I guess I'll just say that. And so I would think about it as you're setting up HubSpot, consider them in that process because they can be really impactful in terms of filtering data and creating visibility. Where could I find the default deal name? Okay. Oh, nice. What plans does the team have for making assignment of association labels easier to automate? I promise I will answer that question later.
There's a lot of roadmap questions. Everybody,
okay, cool.
Hold on. We'll get to the roadmap at the end. If your question involves what plans do you have, how are you going to do this, when will we have this, we'll get there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you everyone for the great questions. Yeah, we promise we'll get there. Lots of roadmap stuff to come. Okay, let's go ahead and test out what we just set up, both in terms of applying labels and the default deal name flow. So we're going to assume that Avery is an instructor at Tutoring Central and specifically works with students who are in the math and science spaces. So you should always see now this, unless you've customized your right sidebar, the contact section, which is pretty cool. So you can create that contact to contact association. So I'm going to go ahead and search for some students. Something that we added last year is this hover experience, which I think is pretty awesome. If you are in a much bigger portal, you might have a bunch of people with the name Ethan Jackson. So by hovering, you will actually see the fields that kind of show up within your right sidebar. So if you've customized them, we'll reflect that as well. This is pretty nice. I can see that Ethan is a biology focused student. So I know that that's somebody who should be associated to Avery. So I'm going to go ahead and select and hit next. And then I'm going to assign my association labels. In this case, I am going to apply the label student. Oh, whoops. I'm going to apply this label student, which should make sure that Ethan is the student and Avery is the teacher. I really like to always check my work with this preview to make sure that I'm applying the right label. Obviously, it can get tricky when you have scenarios like mine where I created two different paired labels where one side of it is students. So it's always nice to check your work here. And then I'm going to hit save. I'm going to do that one more time just to kind of go through that flow. So I'm going to look for Charlotte. And again, it's really nice that I can have that hover experience, double check that physics is a course that is relevant to Avery, keep going, and add my label. Whoops. Again, checking my work and hitting save. All right, the cool thing here is I can double check that these two students have the label student. If I go to the other side, I will see that their teacher is listed here with the label teacher. Super excited about this functionality, which enables people to really kind of represent the dynamics that exist and label them appropriately. Okay, next, let's try out our deal form. So Charlotte Edwards is a student. And again, students are kind of the key piece that we think of when we are having people sign up. I know that it sometimes feels icky to think of a student as a deal, but in this case, I think it makes sense. So you can see here that I configured it so that the default experience should pull in the first name and the last name of the contact record we're on. Awesome that that populated. There's no like weird dashes and references to new deal. It's populating correctly, and I can always select. I haven't created any courses yet, but I could select the course that Charlotte is interested in. But the nice thing is that I have very little work to do, and I can just go ahead and hit create. And now here is my deal, and it's kind of already good to go. Okay, I feel like I jumped through a lot of different pieces of functionality. So that was most of what I wanted to cover. I think I wanted to switch to talk about roadmap stuff unless we have specific questions on content or associations pieces that I've already covered. Okay. Okay, let's talk about the hover experience. I feel like that's a good one. So the way that that works is that if you go to your record customization and you customize your association cards, you can see here that you can select specific properties. So I intentionally included academic course. You could add whatever property you thought was most important. And so these are the properties that you see when you are, whoops, on the right sidebar. So if I go here and I see my associated contacts, this academic course is populated because that's the value that I selected. You can always update that. And so then we pull in whatever you've chosen as your right sidebar kind of properties is what we will show in the hover experience. Samantha, that is a great question. It is something we are working on. Samantha's question was, will you ever be able to see the internal association label name after creation? We know that that's a little bit of a black box right now. And so we are working to make sure that we can visualize that. So that should be coming up hopefully in the next couple of months. Okay, can you set default deal names for custom objects the same way you can for deals? Daniel, I'm assuming you mean like setting the name of the custom object. Right now, the only way that you can, the only space where you can do that configuration experience that I just showed is for deal names. We've heard a fair amount of requests for it to exist for tickets as well. Would love to hear any use cases around custom objects, but we'll definitely keep listening. We don't have anything specifically on the roadmap quite yet. Okay, good questions. Keep them coming. Is it possible to limit the contacts that are associated to an object? Deal the ticket so that to those associated with an already selected company. I think what you're saying is limit the contacts that are associated to an object. So you're saying if a deal is associated to a company, then you could only associate contacts that are associated with that company as well. Joe, I think is your question. That is not a concept we have right now, but interesting to think about. I feel like that web of object types can sometimes be a little bit tricky, but interesting request for sure. All right. would be great. I'm scrolling. Okay. Did I miss anything? Can we see the historical associations between custom objects and... Okay. Dario, you asked a relevant question. I wasn't going to talk about it, so I'll give that sneak preview. I'm pretty sure that we have a team that's working on showing historical custom object associations. I know that they are not currently covered in association history and that's a source of frustration. So thank you for flagging that. And does the hover experience work in other places when doing the multi-checkbox associating? Thinking about when we add line items while creating a deal, or when we have to associate an email from the activity feed with a deal. Up to now, we've had to name every single deal as company, product, date. I feel like I need to spend some more time with this use case. It's a little in the weeds. Does the hover experience work in other places? I think that we mostly have it within the record experience, but I will take your question, Cody, and think a little bit more about what that would mean more broadly, or you should feel free to email me as well. Okay. Any other questions about things that we have ever? Okay. HubSpot ever removed the association label limit of 10? Yes. I don't want to speak too soon, but if we haven't released that already, we are actively working on it right this second. I'll double check. I kind of thought we had already pushed that out. So yes, we hear you on the association label limit. More are forthcoming if they aren't out already. Okay. Wow, so many good questions. Okay. Will requiring associations become possible at any point? I have a lot of clients who request this. They want to force sales to require companies to be associated to deals. Okay, let's do that together live. So we'll just go back to our deal form. So let's say you wanted to make it so that every deal is associated to a company. So that'll show up in the bottom. You see companies now. If you hit this asterisk, that will make the companies required, and something that we have found really helpful. So hopefully that is solving for that question. Whew, so many questions. Okay, will it be possible to add an association label in the preview pane for an object on the right? I don't 100% understand that question. And so if somebody wants to clarify, please do. For deal names and custom objects. Whew. Oh, Karina, I love that you love talking about education. That is my background, so it's also where my heart is. Devin, you asked a question about, can we import records and overwrite labels somewhere? I just lost it. I would have to double check with the import team. That's a good question. But we have some other functionality that I'm about to talk about that will hit some of that as well. Can you require the labels via stage validation? We'll also talk about that in a second. Whew.
Admins ask the hard questions.
I love it. I'm going to answer this question about requiring associations for specific deal pipelines when I talk about the roadmap. Is there any resource out there to see how this is working with the data importing mapping screen? Maybe. We have lots of good import resources. But yeah, I think I'll double check on the updating label stuff. Do I need to sit down? I'm okay. I'm standing. I appreciate you checking in. And I love all the energy. And I don't know, I guess maybe if you are like, some of you are really getting after it, playing drinking games with everything that I'm saying. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing quickly. And I'm going to go back to my deck and do a little bit of a recap of everything that we just covered, which was a bit. Okay, we covered the data model overview, custom objects and their descriptions, the improved experience of finding the right associations or the right records to associate. You all called that out. It seems like we've learned quite a bit about that hover experience. I think it's pretty neat. Same object associations, association labels, two kinds, paired and single. Being able to limit associations both at the object type level and the label level. And then I know a bunch of people were asking about the default deal name. If you don't see that in your deal name setup or in your deal form setup, I think Audrey has said this a bunch of times, that will be rolled out over the next week or so. So hold tight. We promise it's coming soon. Okay. Are we ready to move to what's next? Kyle and Deanna, did I miss any other key stuff other than roadmap questions?
I think people are chomping at the bit. Let's do it.
Okay. Oh, this is our official legal statement, which is that things are coming. They might change. As a product manager, I feel like I need to tell you that this is all as of today. Please do not hold us to any of the specifics or any of the timeline. Checking that box, we showed you the stuff. All right. I am going to do my best to describe these things efficiently, but I want to say that there's probably going to be a lot of questions, so I will do my best to pause. Okay, this first one is required association labels for record creation. So we just showed the ability to require companies, but let's say you always, every time you create a contact, you always want there to be an associated company with the label employer. We are making it so that you can both set that association during that flow or set the association label during that flow, and you can make the label required. You could also say, I just want there to be any label. It doesn't matter what, because that's a really important part of your business process. So we're really excited about that. We're actively working on it. We're targeting Q2 2024. Okay. This next one, I feel like it came up a million times already in the chat. I know lots of you have already chimed in on the ideas forum, which is association, cool stuff in workflows. So in particular, reducing the time spent on manual tasks by setting, updating, or removing association labels via workflow. Specifically, the way that we're thinking about this is based on a property on either the enrolled object or the associated object, you can apply a label. And so that's the first version of this. We're also looking into creating associations based on exact matching properties on two records. So you can imagine you might have a contact record and a company record, and you might say, if both of them have a region of Northeast, then create that association. We know that this has been a very, very requested space. Super excited that people understand labels enough that they want to automate them. And I'm going to respond to questions about it in a second. But we know that there's going to be a lot of questions in this space. So our goal is to get a first version of this out in Q2. We know that there is going to be lots of questions, lots of feedback about how to expand this functionality. So we're super excited about having a first version available. Okay. There was a follow-up question. Can you have a lookup by record ID? That's a good question. The way that we're thinking about creating associations is when there's it has to be an exact match. So that you wouldn't have an exact match for two different records. So I'm not 100% sure how that would work.
Chad adds another comment farther down about using external systems with record IDs. So Chad, I think as long as you could pull that record ID into a property in each of the two objects you want to associate to each other, then that would work perfectly. But how you're getting that data into HubSpot properties in the first place is a separate issue.
Correct. Yeah. Thanks for jumping in, Kyle. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Very excited about that piece of the puzzle. Okay. Admin configured activity association defaults. It's a lot of words to say. We're going to increase your control of where activities appear to remove clutter or add context. So right now, if you log an email or a call or a meeting onto a contact record, we do this thing where we then automatically log, and by log I mean those checkboxes are selected to the 5 most recently associated deals. And what we've heard from people is that that creates a lot of messiness, and it's frustrating that you can't control where that information shows up, and telling your reps that they have to uncheck or check boxes every single time you're logging a new activity can feel really messy and frustrating. And so we are making it so that you, the admin, can say, this is a rule of how it should work. So every time that an email or a call is logged to a contact record, I don't want it to be logged to any other associated records. Or maybe you want some logging for some object types. We're really excited about this. We get a lot of confusion about how the auto associations experience works and how activities in particular get captured on different record times. So excited about having our first version out in the next bit, hopefully. Okay, association permission. This has been an interesting trend in feedback that people find it frustrating that although you can control to a degree the creation permissions, you can't control associations permissions. So this will be a specific permission to control which users can create, edit, or delete associations. So you would, if you had record edit permissions, you would then also need this permission to be able to add or remove or update associations to make sure that people are not just going wild and associating things. It seems like it's a distinct enough access pattern that people want something separate. And then I want to talk about conditional associations, which is a bit of a new concept. So somebody asked before, can you make it so that associations are required by pipeline stage? And that is exactly this. So if you mark a deal as closed won, then you could require that there is an associated contact, or you could require that there is an associated contact with the label primary buyer. Similar concept to our conditional property system, where it's dependent on a specific property value, is something that we have in the works for later this year. I'm curious, is there anything that you were hoping was on the roadmap that I haven't gotten to, or that I haven't talked about?
You got that. That's a dangerous open-ended question.
Oh, my chat was like frozen all the way scrolled up. Okay, sorry. Wow, I missed all this other stuff. Conditional requirements. Christy, I'm sorry, I'm just seeing your question, so I'm not sure which piece you were asking about in terms of tier. Activity rules between custom associations is something that Christoph asked for. I don't know what we mean by custom associations, so I'd be curious to learn more. Bulk setting and removing labels. Yep, James, definitely thinking about that, obviously, through workflows, but also we know that that's challenging. You can't do that elsewhere in the UI. Payments and custom objects. Okay, interesting. Custom object association to payments. Oh, hot topic. Associating form fills to record automatically. Okay. Being able to pick whether associations can have one label versus multiple labels. Devin, that's interesting. I feel like we've heard a couple of sprinklings of that kind of feedback, but don't have anything specifically on the roadmap yet. Love when people describe GIFs. It's always fun. Line items and quotes associated to custom objects. Okay, so lots of associating things to custom objects is what I'm hearing. Oh man, Bevy is like freaking out. I'm trying to scroll through so many good things. Conditional associations, but really much of them. Okay, awesome. Okay. Conditional associations, I believe will be pro and above, but don't hold me to that. I'll have to kind of like double check internally. I would say a lot of this stuff would be available everywhere for everyone. Association permission will definitely be available for everyone. Required labels, anything label related will be Pro Plus because you need Pro Plus to have labels. So definitely the workflow stuff as well. I don't think anything is enterprise specific. The configuring association defaults, I think, will be all paid portals. Would love for contacts with association labels to appear higher on the right pane of the company record. Yeah, I think we have some teams who are working on sorting and how to organize the way that associated records show up. So Lisa, that's great feedback. Associate conversations with deals. We got some more feedback there. Associations, wow, between product and custom objects. Okay. Did I get that right? For associations, we can now associate objects via workflow. So Andrea, the answer is we will enable you to create an association between two records via workflow with very specific, in very specific circumstances. So it'll have to be a string property or a single select property where the value is an exact match is what we were planning on. Okay, Alan asks, will there ever be a way to have custom labels or types of tasks? Tasks is a little outside my domain, but that sounds cool. I don't know the answer to that, but I can pass that feedback along to the tasks team. love a CRM card with a countdown timer to Q2. Okay, being able to set the labels when creating a record. Yep. So because with the ability to require labels when you're creating an association, will also enable you to set labels. So that's pretty nice. Jeremy, I also love this hug. It's very helpful for me as well. Okay, record page filtering and sorting around association labels is a request from Justin. I agree. I think it's like, we need to figure that out. It's okay that you can add a column on your index page with specific labels or specific associations, but I agree that we could use some filtering of labels. Are we able to create reports using labels as a filter? I think so. You can definitely filter on association labels in lists. I have not done a ton of using labels. Labels are definitely available in the custom report builder, but I'm not a pro on how to use those labels in reports. Kyle, I don't know if you have any expertise to shine in that space.
I am always sort of embarrassed about how little I know about reporting. I know they appear in some places. I know there was one of the things contingent to launching them. I remember they stayed in beta for a while because we had to figure out the reporting stuff, but I do not know the extent. Oh, James says custom reports, but not single. That okay. Sounds reasonable to me.
Right. Yeah, we worked a lot with them on same object associations.
Well, and I guess if you have a single object report, you don't have associations.
Right. Okay, cool. So yes, they exist in reports where they would make sense. Kyle and Deanna, is this okay? Can I just like keep scrolling through the chat, or is there like a better format for me?
As long as it's fun for you, I think people are enjoying it. So
okay, cool. Thanks everyone for all your feedback. Okay, yeah, go for it.
No, I just wanted to let you know there is a Q&A tab, and as of the last time I checked it, there's 47 new questions there. So.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to look at all of you directly, and I'm going to answer all the Q&A questions. I'm so sorry. I was accidentally prioritizing the chat over the Q&A. Okay, and then they're like sorted by upvotes. Cool. Okay, let's start at this one with 5 upvotes from Chad. Can we see the association type ID from the object to data to object associations on the data model page? No, but that's interesting. That would be helpful. That is not feedback actually we've gotten so far. So I will think about that with the team. I imagine seeing the type ID of an association when hovering over that line that goes on to the object you're interested in. Currently, the only way to get the type ID right now is by querying via API. Yeah, definitely hear you all on like, once you set your association label, it's hard to find more information. This is super great feedback for our team. It's already something we are thinking about. Okay. Oh, wow. I'm being such a bevy noob. I just learned how to sort by most voted. Okay. Will we be getting a native way to apply labels via workflow instead of relying on coded actions and third-party integrations? The answer to that is yes. We just talked about it. So I feel great that I can respond to that, Josh. Okay. Is there a way to require an association label? Not yet, but we are actively working on it.
I suspect a lot of these questions came in before you got to the roadmap slides.
Okay. Okay. That's cool. It's nice. I can feel like really productive right now. Is a contact-to-contact association for job changers a recommended use case? Primary equals active, previous job equals inactive. Could be. I don't know that I would necessarily make two versions of a contact and then associate them to each other. You're going to run into some issues with not having distinct emails, although I don't know. I think that's a little messy, but you could have a company label where you could label their current employer as active and their former employer as inactive. That would make sense to me. Okay. I think I answered Chad's question. Is it possible to associate deals with each other via workflows? I need an automation that creates a deal that associates with another one like its parent. I don't think you can do that currently. I don't think we have the create and associate flow for same object type associations. But it's potentially possible with the functionality that we're currently working on. And I know that the workflows team is thinking about the experience of that create and associate flow in general. Okay. Will we be able to import records with associations and association labels? I think we talked about that one already. I don't know the answer to it, but I think that is a reasonable thing that the import team would be able to support. So love that request. Is there going to be the ability to limit which labels can be added or removed by the team? Example, we want a label that only the system can apply or remove, but have another label that needs the team to be able to apply or remove. That is very cool and in the weeds. I think we're, just getting to the point where we have an association permission, which will start pretty broad. So we haven't thought about this level of granularity in terms of association permissions, but we'll definitely keep that in the back of our minds. Can we set or change associations?
Sorry to interrupt.
Go for it.
You can already associate with association labels or import with association labels. But the question was, Kyle, if you can override. Oh, interesting.
Which is the part that I don't know the answer to.
I don't know that either. Okay, go ahead.
No, please interrupt me. We definitely have broader context than I do on a bunch of things. Okay, Devin asked, can we set or change associations and association labels via workflows without using custom code? We talked about that already. Will we ever be able to require association labels? The answer is yes. So that's in the works. Whew. When we create a custom object, is there a way to set defaults for user permission access to that custom object? Feels like it should start restricted. You can set granular custom object permissions. And what I mean by that is that if you have 3 different custom objects, you can have different permissions per object. I don't know what the out-of-the-box experience is in terms of what level of access we provide. But I think that your steps in creating your custom object might be create custom object, create associations, and then go look at what the permissions should be. Is there a simple way to associate a contact and custom object via a workflow other than creating custom code? Not right this second, but as I said, we're working on that. We talked about label limits, which I can work on with Kyle on providing an update there because it is something I know we're actively working on. Okay. Are there any plans to allow associating a custom object to a HubSpot payment? There are a bunch of custom object to payment questions. I do not know the answer to that question. It's not something that's specifically on my roadmap, but it is possible. It seems like there's a lot of interest in that space. So we'll definitely kind of keep listening, and I'll make sure the payments team is aware. Okay, we have 5 minutes left. Should I just keep going? Cool. How to create default deal name values per pipeline is a question that Martin asked. We do not have that functionality yet. We've heard it from a couple people. We don't have anything on the roadmap, but it's something that we'll be listening for as more and more folks start configuring default deal name. Is there an easy way to filter index pages based on association labels? I have a hard time understanding how to see a list of companies that don't have a contact with a specific label. I can't specifically think of how to do this within an index page. I agree that we're kind of missing some filters there. I think you might be able to do it within a list. I think you should probably be able to filter on the absence of an association label, although I am not 100% positive about that. Why, when creating new records through the association button, are we not allowed to add labels as part of the create form? James, that's a great question. I think it's just something we haven't built yet. Eileen, I feel like your question is, I'm interested in approaches to adding this kind of organization to a very large established portal. That feels pretty broad to cover in 3 minutes. But I don't know, incrementally, I'm sure there are lots of great folks in here who've rolled things out far more than I have. But I think it's a great way to use labels and those limits to make sure your team is kind of on the right track. So I don't have any great recommendations other than tell them that it's the process now and then make it so that they can't go off the rails. Do the associations manually need to be updated if something with the relationship changes, or is there automation that can be set for that? Currently, you would need to manually update the label. With the new stuff that we're working on with workflows, I could imagine a way that you could be listening for the change of a particular property and update that. So nothing quite yet, but we're working on it. Okay. Requiring associations during deal stage, ticket stage progression versus just object creation would be amazing. Perfect world, we want to associate a contact of a certain role to a deal at a late deal stage to support billing and notification automations. David, that's very much aligned to the concept of conditional associations. So love that would be helpful for you. We're absolutely thinking about it. Adele asked, will we be able to copy property values from one contact to another? You can already do that via workflow, and you could also create sync properties, which enable you to pull information from one record type to another type. Although I don't know if we have that for contact to contact. But yeah, I think we already have copying property value support now. Okay, just kidding.
Well, we have, yeah, in workflows we do. Sync properties is a big secret nobody knows about yet.
Ignore what I just said. Workflows would be a great place to do that. Oops.
These are the sorts of treats you get for staying right till the end, folks. Good job.
Okay, I'll answer one last question. This has been great. Thank you all for your thoughtful input. Okay, when creating a custom object record from an existing standard object, the existing records don't automatically associate to the custom object. They are planning to fix this so the custom object associations work the same as standard objects. Okay, it sounds like you want to be able to copy associations from one record to another. You can do this in some of the record creator forms. It's pretty annoying that we don't have it everywhere. So it's something that is definitely on our backlog to-do list. And with that, I think, wow, A lot of great content, a lot of good questions. Thank you all for being such great active participants.
This was awesome, Maggie. Thanks for just plowing through a really incredible number of questions. And thank you all for being here. If people want to connect with you after this, what's the best way to do that? Are you on LinkedIn or what do you
Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn. I think it's Maggie-Brenner. Would always love to chat HubSpot and learn what you're thinking about.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Thanks again, everyone, for being here.
We were supposed to send out the link. Did that happen already?
Yeah,
I
totally
did it earlier, but I'll do it again.
Okay. Thank you, Deanna. You're the best.
You got it, and I'll send it out in the email.
Okay.
Okay, great. All right. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Hope to see you all back next week. Bye. It'll end eventually. Don't.